Good afternoon, everyone. This is Ryan Tarrant, President and CEO of the Bay Area Chamber of Commerce. We're going to give it just a moment while everyone comes online. I know we still have quite a few coming in. So as we get ready, if anyone has questions for our legislators today, please feel free to use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. We won't be using the chat box. We'll be using the Q&A box for any and all questions for the legislators at the end of their presentations. I think we're just about ready to get started. I'd like to turn things over to Todd Clements, the Vice Chair of Public Affairs for the Bay Area Chamber of Commerce and our Chair-elect. Todd?
I'm Todd Clements, First Bank. I would like to welcome you to the Bay Area Chamber of Commerce 2021 Legislative Luncheon. We have a great panel of elected officials that I'm sure you will find informative and in tune with current issues facing our state and region. Thank you for choosing to attend today's program. Herb Spence, President and CEO of Spence Brothers, will serve as moderator for our panel discussion today. Please know that there will be time for questions and answers following the presentations. To submit a question to our panelists, please use the Q&A icon that you'll see at the bottom of your screen. At this time, I invite you to join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would like to take a moment to recognize chamber sponsors that made this program possible. Sponsors will be shown on your screen as I read their names aloud. Our legacy sponsors are First State Bank, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, Doubletree by Hilton Bay City Riverfront, Independent Bank, McLaren Bay Region, Michigan Sugar Company, Three Rivers Corporation, and Thumb Bank and Trust. Premier sponsors include Consumers Energy, Covenant Healthcare, Cumulus Media, Dow, Financial Edge Credit Union, Great Lakes Federal Credit Union, Harbor Light Photography, Spence Brothers, TCF Bank, and Wildfire Credit Union. Our community partners are Great Lakes Bay Michigan Works, Great Lakes Bay Regional Convention and Visitors Bureau, Saginaw Valley State University. Our visionary leaders include AT&T, Bay City Bridge Partners, Mid-Michigan Health, and Saginaw Eagles Landing Casino. Our mission members are Edward Jones, Jeff Stoddicker, Encompass Therapy, Ideal Party Store, Northway Plum Insurance Agency. Today's event sponsors are Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, Dow Chemical Employees Credit Union, Essexville Hampton Public Schools, Independent Bank, Main Street Gifts, Michigan Sugar Company, Mulford Clift Inc., My Community Dental Centers, Spence Brothers, and Thumb Bank and Trust. With that, allow me to introduce Herb Spence, President and CEO of Spence Brothers. Herb, take it away.
Thank you, Todd. And since it's Friday, we will get right to our program. Each speaker is allowed 10 minutes for general comments. We will have, as been said, question and answers, which will follow at the end of our three guest speakers' presentations. And as you have been directed, please submit all questions that you may have as soon as you have them in the Q&A icon located at the bottom of the screen, and we will try to get to as many of those as possible at the end of our program. I would now like to introduce our first presentation by Senator Kevin Daley. Senator Kevin Daley is a fifth-generation Lapeer County farmer, a lifetime resident of the district, and the state senator for the counties of Bay, Lapeer, and Tuscola. Senator Daley began his career in public service as a member of the Arcadia Township Planning Commission. He went on to serve in the positions of trustee, treasurer, and eventually township supervisor. He was first elected to the Michigan House of Representatives in 2008 and represented Lapeer County in the 82nd District until 2014. As the only active farmer in the House of Representatives at the time, Daley was chosen to serve as chairman of the House Agricultural Committee. In 2018, he was elected to represent the 31st State Senate District. There, Daley was once again chosen to help improve Michigan's agricultural, being elected as chairman of the Senate Agricultural Committee. Senator Daley is committed to helping create a healthy economy, investing in skilled trades training, and protecting our hometown family values. Gavin is very active in community and a member of several volunteer organizations. His membership includes the NRA, Right to Life of Michigan, Sunrise Lapeer Kiwanis Club, Lapeer County Farm Bureau, among others. He has served on the Lapeer County Farm Bureau Board of Directors, Lapeer County Agricultural Preservation Board, and is a former president of the Tri-County Michigan Milk Producers Association. Senator Daley is also active in Habitat for Humanity for Lapeer and Tuscola counties. Daley lives in Lapeer County with his wife, Debbie, an elementary school teacher. The two of them met in church during their school years and have been married for 41 years. Together, they have 3 children, 6 grandchildren who they love to spend time with as much as possible. Welcome, Senator Daley.
Thank you, Herb. It's an honor to be here today. Too bad we can't be here in person. I've always enjoyed the dinners that you have over in Essexville, and it's good to see all the folks from Bay County at that event. But so I'll just give you a little bit of update of what's been going on in the Senate over the last year. And at the beginning of this year, Senate Republicans released our 2021 priorities. We're committed to building a healthier families and communities and a healthier economy and a healthier future. I'm personally committed to finding solutions for the people of the 31st District, supporting our businesses after a year's worth of shutdowns, and helping get our students back on track. We, at the beginning of March, I voted and supported for a $4.2 billion in additional COVID-19 funding. This bipartisan approved plan prioritized what Michigan needs most right now, ensuring access to vaccines, providing funding to those who have lost their jobs, and those that have had their businesses closed through no fault of their own, and making sure schools have the resources to return to independent learning. A couple of highlights for the plan are as follows. As it passed, it was $110 million more for vaccine distribution, $150 million in continued increase pay for direct care workers, $283 million in emergency rental assistance, $55 million for grants to help struggling businesses with unemployment taxes, $300 million to assist Michigan businesses facing financial hardships due to shutdown orders, and $150 million to protect the state's unemployment trust fund, and another $2 billion in school funding. Unfortunately, Governor Whitmer decided to veto hundreds of millions of dollars for schools and for businesses struggling to keep their doors open, including $300 million in grants to help businesses keep their doors open. As we continue to discuss the fiscal year 2022 budget, we start to have discussions on how to best use the federal funding in Michigan we will receive from the American Rescue Plan. I will continue to fight for dollars for our communities and local businesses that have been through so much this past year. Actually, it was Timmy Beson's bill that came over from the House to the Senate. The appropriations bill that we passed in the Senate and sent on to the governor, and she vetoed those very important issues that were so business oriented. We as a government, the government has shut down businesses. We can't afford to walk away from those businesses now and require them to do things. One of the issues that came up for community organizations that to me directly is actually Mike Paragrandi from the American Legion in Bay City that contacted me when he received his bill for his 2021 club license, liquor license for his business, which had been shut down most of the months of the year. And he found it hard to believe that he was paying for a license similar to what we were trying to do with the businesses through the bill that Timmy had. He couldn't see the reason for that and was asking why we couldn't do something different. So we drafted a bill to give them a credit for any time that the government had shut them down last year. That bill is a total of close to $900, I believe, for the Bay City Legion. And we would give them a credit for the months that they were completely shut down during the year towards their next year's budget. That passed out of the Senate unanimously, bipartisan bill, is now over in the House. And I'm hoping that Annette and Timmy will help me get that thing through over there, and let's get it to the governor's desk, and hopefully she'll see the value in providing that. On another note, that was Senate Bill 125. We had Senate Bill 126, which was a contact from one of my other counties, from Lapeer County, from another Legion Hall that had basically, they did not have a liquor license, but they had a license for bingo, and bingo would raise them around $40,000 a year. And so their bingo licenses, the same thing after the first of the year, they got a license or a request for $150 fee for their bingo license, where they played bingo not once all year long. He contacted me. He said, it's more of an issue of, it's not an issue of the $150. That wasn't going to kill their organization. Losing that $40,000 was a huge loss to them, but they would be able to make that. And they paid the fee. They said it just didn't seem right. So we also introduced a bill that would give them credit towards that. If they did not use bingo in the previous year, they get credit for the full $150 and would not have to pay it. So again, that passed unanimously out of the Senate and is on its way over to the House as now. We've got, we're going to be introducing some legislation next week that will allow a qualified business that is closed for at least 6 weeks due to an emergency order issued by the governor or DHHS and lost at least 25% of their annual revenue to claim a property tax credit on their state income tax for the 2022-2021 tax years. This legislation will give businesses a mechanism to recoup property tax expenses through their income tax return. What we've done to businesses, and I'm preaching to the choir here, is that, we've shut you down through government, a lot of businesses, but yet you've still received your tax bill, you're still getting your mortgage payment, you're still paying your fees to the state for your licensing. We have to, and we can use this CARES money that came from the federal government to do that. For some reason, our governor doesn't see fit to do that at this point in time. But I know I'm working hard to make sure that we keep that pressure on so that we can get that relief back to them. One other bill that I'll mention, and then I'll move on. A bill that I've been working on allows for emergency supplies for insulin. So this has nothing to do with COVID, but it has something to do with an issue that is very important to people with type 2 diabetes that are dependent on insulin. A lot of these people today wear pumps on their sides that put the insulin into their system as needed. If they can't get their insulin, they cannot go very long, and it can be life-threatening. They had what started this legislation was in Ohio, a guy named Kevin Hooney. I haven't heard time with his last name. They called it Howdy's Law in Ohio. And that happened about 4 or 5 years ago. It was at Christmas time. He had dropped a bottle of his insulin, broke it, could not get to a doctor that would give him a prescription extension. His prescription was out, could not get it from his pharmacy. So he started rationing his insulin, and it was not successful, and Kevin died. So Indiana has passed a law, and 28 states across the country have passed laws to allow pharmacists, for people that have been buying on a regular basis insulin from those facilities, to purchase a supply of insulin until they can get back to their doctor and get that approved. So it's just a common sense bill in my mind that has passed out of the Senate and is heading on over to the House as well as we speak. So with that, I just want to thank all the folks in Bay City. It's been an honor representing you. It's been hard this last year to get out to events because there hasn't been very many events to get to talk to people, but we do our best. We're always available to you. And I think you'll find that the three people you have here today are that is their goals, and that is to be available, be approachable, and we're here for you. So with that, I will pass it back to Herb, and I appreciate the chance to be here and talk today, Herb.
Thank you so much, Senator Daley. And our next presentation is from Representative Annette Glenn. State Representative Annette Glenn was first elected to the Michigan House in November 2018. She represents the 98th District, which includes portions of Bay and Midland counties. Within Bay, Representative Glenn represents the cities of Auburn, Pinconning, and Linwood, and the townships of Beaver, Fraser, Garfield, Gibson, Mount Forest, Pinconning, and Williams. In Midland County, the district includes the city of Midland, the village of Sanford, and the townships of Homer, Jerome, Larkin, Lee, and Midland. Representative Glenn serves on the House Appropriations Committee, which, along with its subcommittees, is responsible for helping determine the state budget. She serves as chair of the Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy Subcommittee, vice chair of the School Aid and Department of Education Subcommittee, and as member of the Health and Human Service, the Military and Veterans Affairs, and the State Police Subcommittees. Annette graduated from Boise State University with a degree in public administration and served as the state chair of College Republicans, going on to become vice chair of the College Republican National Committee. Annette has served in multiple legislative offices at the state and federal level. She has also managed several political campaigns, including those for Congress, Lieutenant Governor, State Supreme Court, and multiple state House and Senate campaigns. She was elected county Republican chair at age 23. Annette currently serves on the board of directors of a demographic, analytics, and marketing think tank, and she is also a longtime scouting volunteer and the mother of 4 Eagle Scout sons. She's also served as volunteer treasurer for the Midland Flames boys basketball team and the Fleet Feet youth track team. She is certainly nonstop energy. Annette and her husband Gary live in Midland and celebrated their 35th wedding anniversary a few years ago. They have 5 children and 7 grandchildren. Welcome, Representative Glenn. You're mute.
I know, I have to find the unmute button because as y'all talk, everything moves around. It is great to see those of you that I can see. Thanks for that great introduction, Herb, and great conversation earlier this week. I can tell you it is a real privilege to represent the parts of Bay County that I get to represent, and even more so that I have 2 great legislators to work with, Senator Daley and Representative Beson. So Timmy and I, our offices are on the same floor. So it is rare that I walk by his office that I don't see him on the phone talking to a constituent. I have been in the office and heard his staff talking to somebody, and Tim jumps right in there to help fix things as quick as he can. And that's just been great. The whole tenor of the floor has really changed because he is so much about being in the district and taking care of people and getting unemployment taken care of. So I will just say the 3 of us have a really good partnership, that we work well together, and that's a win for me. I hear from other legislators that they have contention with the other members that they serve with, and that's just not the case where we are, which means we get to spend all of our time working with you and working in Lansing and getting things done. So that's great. As Herb said, I have been blessed to serve on appropriations both last time and this time. What's new for me is, as I was reelected, I have new committee assignments. So some new ones and some old ones. So chairing Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy is new. I did sit on it before, but chairing is new. I think they put me there because of all of the issues with the dams all over the state, and that our area got hit so heavily and has been so devastated, and it's going to take us another 4 to 5 years to recover from that. So we've been really busy this year. We've got a quick process trying to figure the best way to handle all of those federal funds that are coming, and also making sure that we take care of those dollars that we have been entrusted from the state level as well, making sure that we are efficient with those dollars, making sure that we're effective. And something that I sponsored last year was our Return to Learn plan, which set up criteria to get our kids back in seats, back in classes. And it has been a blessing for me that the majority of my students that I represent have been able to be in person in school. I know I met the newest state rep from Saginaw County, and his first question to me was, what did you do to get your kids back in schools? And I will just say I've got really great superintendents that I work with, and I help where I can, but it's all on them that the kids have been in seats most of the time. So as I mentioned, we are looking at what we can do to make the dam safer all over the state, what we can put in place for proper oversight. Something I learned that I did not know before our dam failures. We did have 2 dam inspectors, but those dam inspectors never left their offices. They read paperwork that was submitted to them and sat in their offices. So one of my questions was, why do we have regional offices if you're only sitting there reading paper? You can do that from any place. So we have funded some additional positions so that they now can leave the offices and can go inspect the dams instead of just taking for granted what paperwork comes in. They can make some of those determinations. First bill that I introduced last term, and similarly this term, have to do with government transparency. That has been a big priority for me. We take your dollars. You don't necessarily willingly contribute them to us. And because we have what I will just call a sacred stewardship over those dollars, I think it's critical that you guys can get information and feedback about what we're doing with those, what things are going right and what's not going right. So I am part of Freedom of Information Act. Michigan is often listed 48, 49, or 50 as far as being open. The governor's office is not open for FOIA, and neither is the legislature. So the House overwhelmingly has passed a package and sent it over to Senator Daley. And I'm hoping that he can be supportive of that package as it comes through this year. Something else that you guys have maybe heard quite a bit about is we had the head of the Department of Health and Human Services that left quite suddenly. And not only did he leave quite suddenly, but was given $155,000 to leave quite suddenly and signed a confidentiality agreement. The unemployment agency, the director left quite suddenly and was given about $86,000 and also signed a confidentiality agreement. The governor and Director Gordon have waived that agreement, but so far nobody wants to talk about what's been going on in Health and Human Services. You may just be seeing that the House Oversight Committee is going to be issuing subpoenas. So that will be coming forth to the House to be voted on so that we can hopefully get some real answers. Things like seniors in nursing homes, when's that going to end? How the decisions are being made, what science and data is being used. Some of the things I've learned have been really interesting. We have weekly calls with the Department of Corrections. And in that department, they give us a weekly update of how many prisoners, how many staff have COVID, how many are in the hospital, how many on ventilators. So I know that we do have numbers and data, but the only department that I've been able to get easy access to is the Department of Corrections that sends out a weekly email and also a conversation. But I think that's important that we have that for statewide. Other things we've learned is there's not a set criteria for how we even count COVID positive patients. Some counties will count the same person multiple times, and some counties will count that same person as one, as long as it's within a certain time period. So part of that FOIA package and part of bringing Director Gordon in is to get some real numbers and some real data so that we can all make really good decisions. I've always been very supportive of transparency and very supportive of making sure that we're sharing the data and the information we have so that we can all make good decisions. Election integrity is something that I hear a lot about. People want to know that their vote counts. that their vote is taken care of safely and that we have good protocols in place. And so some of the things that are going on in the House is there's some bills that do a strict cleanup. It's a convoluted process when somebody passes away. It goes through 3 or 4 different places before it finally ends up and can be removed from the voter list. And so that's something that really needs to be taken care of. We have a really fabulous agency at state government called the Auditor General's Office. And they made some good recommendations last year, well before November, about things that need to be cleaned up, including the voter registration list. So we're going through and implementing those and continuing oversight on that. There also, one of the legislators has asked the Auditor General to do an in-depth investigation into elections in general, down to the county level. They indicate that's going to take them about 6 months to get us all of the information. But some of that, I don't know about you guys, but I assumed when I met a county clerk that had been elected 3 or 4 times that they were completely trained and knew everything they would possibly know about their job. Well, apparently that's not exactly how it works every place. Apparently you can get reelected without having done any education to be a county clerk. You just have to be elected. So we'll be putting together a website where you'll be able to look up and see whether your township clerks and your city clerks, whether they're actually trained to do their job, because I do think that's important. I will tell you, I've heard some interesting stories. One I know firsthand, my sister told me she made a mistake on her ballot and was told she could just use whiteout to fix that. Pretty sure that's not standard protocol. Pretty sure it still got counted and everything effectively, but that's not how things should be. She should have been given an entirely new ballot, and that one should have been spoiled. Kevin's already covered a lot about the COVID money and the spending that's going on. We really wish you as business owners know that you fund the unemployment agency. And that's also another place where there's been a lot of fraud that has happened and money has gone out. None of us on this call think it's right that you should have to put money back in for money that was fraudulently taken out. That money's in there for your employees and for people from Michigan that need those funds. We don't need those funds going out of the country and other places. Another issue that has always been on my priority list is human trafficking. So I am part of a large package of human trafficking that we hope will make it through both houses this time, that will really focus on taking care of the victims and more focus on those that utilize human trafficking, whether it's in the sex trade or labor, and that we do take care of those people that have been taken advantage of. So that's currently in the Judiciary Committee, but I would expect that to be coming out fairly shortly. And finally, one of the most recent bills I have is the County Service Veterans Fund bill. That piece of legislation initially was sponsored by now Speaker Jason Wentworth, where he just wanted additional flexible funds going to our county veterans, where you could make the best calls on what your local veterans needed. It's an annual appropriation about $4 million. And it requires that what's called a maintenance of effort. You actually have to do a little bit of work, drive people to doctors' offices, see them, and that type of thing. Obviously, during COVID, a lot of our veterans are in those high-risk groups, and that was not able to take place. So that allows some flexibility so that we can still get that money to the veterans, but allow that maintenance of effort be waived during COVID and still get that money out to people we need. And that has passed the House 108-1 and is currently over in the Senate, but I am really confident that that one will move quickly. That is a heavily bipartisan issue. So I'm expecting that to be one of the first bills of mine passed this term. And with that, I will turn it back to you, Herb.
Thank you very much, Representative Glenn. Just a reminder to ask all of you to submit any questions that you may have using the Q&A icon located at the bottom of the screen. And we have our final speaker coming up, which is Representative Timmy Beson. Representative Beson was just elected to the House in 2020, representing the 96th District of Bay County, which includes the cities of Bay City and Essexville, and the townships of Bangor, Frankenlust, Hampton, Caucalan, Merritt, Monitor, and Portsmouth. Representative Beson serves on the House Appropriations Committee, is Vice Chair of the Agricultural and Rural Development Natural Resources Subcommittee, and is a member of the School Aid and Department of Education, Licensing and Regulatory Affairs, Insurance and Financial Services, and the Health and Human Services Subcommittees. He was a Bangor Township Schools trustee and is the owner of Beson's Market in Bay City, a meat market and grocery store. Timmy graduated from John Glenn High in 1992 and received his bachelor's degree in business management from Saginaw Valley State University. He is a married father of 3 and enjoys fishing, hunting, and camping with his family. He is also a golfer who likes to entertain friends and family with food. It's a bit cool for golfing today, but I am getting hungry. So welcome, Representative Beson.
Thank you so much for everybody. Today I'm actually at a Bay County Veterans Learning Center fundraiser, and I was promised I'd have internet out here in Ubly. I hope everybody can hear me. It's kind of funny that we are talking about broadband and we just vetoed this area's broadband coming down. So I, of the 96th district, I serve on the Michigan Department of Ag. Like he says, I'm a vice chair. I'm really learning Lansing well with a lot of help from my mentors like Glenn and Annette. They're doing a great job bringing me around, showing me what happens. Like Senator says, I actually have the first PA, I'm the second PA of this year behind Joe Tate, the MSU football excellent representative. And then they did veto a lot of my bill, but they did pass some of it. So I have a public act, the second one for this year. I did not realize that when they tie-barred that some of that would be vetoed, and it's actually coming back in Senate Bill 125. So that way we can give back or at least try to help those businesses stay afloat that we are currently charging their full taxes and the unemployment. And that was what my bill was about. I've learned a lot in Lansing in the last 3 months, but I learned mostly that our state is a reactionary state. We need to change it. And coming from a business background, when you do something, there has to be a reason behind it, but more so than anything, you got to plan for the future. And with all this COVID money coming in, that's really crucial that we do this right, because I'm really afraid when people get a lot of money, including myself when I was a younger person in a car accident, that you get that surplus of money and you use it foolishly. And we need to use this really smart to move on, so that we have it to make our state and especially our city better. The other thing is I haven't had a day off, and even today I'm doing 2 spots. I'm doing this function and this, and then I'm finishing up my store. I can't work from a Zoom meeting. You can't sell a steak over a Zoom meeting, guys. I got to tell you something. As this is perfect right now that I get to be at the Zoom meeting and tell you what we're doing in Lansing, but I'm also working with the Bay County Veterans Learning Center, trying to raise money for them so that we can be in person doing some really cool stuff down in Bay City. Besides that, I did a rural broadband fiber build for Executive Barsha. And some of the stuff I learned in the last 2 weeks are pretty amazing. Also, I know that somebody says this all the time. I didn't realize that when we did a tie bar with my bills, that they could actually feel like that was trying to take away from the governor's power. So I'm glad that these Senate bills are coming back because they're not tie-barred to anything, and it's going to let our local restaurants get some of the money back or make them so that they're get people back to work. So I'm excited about that. The transparency in Lansing and on my departments is a lot of learning, but it's mostly we do to be better transparent. So that way, when we want to look at DHHS suicide rate for this next last 6 months, that we can get the data and stuff like that for our young people, because I have 3 kids in school. School is everything. And when my kids went back to school, the grades all kind of came back up, and that's what I'm working on. I would truly,
Oh, I'm so sorry.
it's okay. Sorry. That's what happens is I'm trying to fundraise with Ken. But I really want to make sure that everybody knows, whether it's a fundraiser for the veterans or a fundraiser for a school, a fundraiser for something, that I'm willing to come be a part and cook at and help them get get the awareness that we need in any area. In closing, I do hope that people get a hold of me. My biggest learning curve of this whole thing was unemployment. I don't know if you guys know this, but I was left a lot of unemployment claims, and we get, as probably our biggest thing, Annette will tell you, is unemployment. I get 50 to 80 calls a week, and we can only expedite 3, and we've given them adequate money to help get this. So I'm excited for what I'm learning, and I'm excited for questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Representative Beson. And I'd like to thank all our speakers for their work, for all of us, and for sharing their thoughts with us today. It is now time for that promised question and answer time that we have. We do have a couple of questions that have been submitted. We do have probably room for some more if you have some for any or all of our speakers. Again, use the Q&A icon to type in that question. And we're waiting for a couple more to come in. I do have a starter question, I guess, for all of you, and you can pick and choose who wants to go first. But I guess what I'm just interested in, what is the most common concern that each of you hear from the people in your districts?
If you want me to go, I could go first on that. Herb, I think by far right now, the most common concern is COVID related. It's a concern and also, believe it or not, a lot of people don't understand, I think, the difference between state politicians and federal politicians, because I'm sure that both of the representatives get calls all the time about issues that are going on in Washington, D.C., the concerns with the money that's being spent and shipped out in regards to COVID, and maybe sometimes not going to what we consider to be the right places, but there's strings attached. So we have no choice but to put them where they're at. So I think it's mostly COVID related. People, you've got people on both sides. We get calls from people that are concerned about people wearing masks, having to wear masks, and people that don't want to wear masks. I mean, it's the same thing that everybody hears out there. There's that argument. There's some that don't think it should be done and some that think it should be done. The issues with the getting vaccines and how they can get vaccines, that seems to be improving a lot right now because the vaccines are becoming much more available, which is a good thing, and the people have that ability. But by far from the most of the people, I believe it's the fact that there is concern about what's going to happen to our small businesses in my district anyway. What's going to happen to these small businesses that we've already lost and the small businesses that are hurting really bad at this point in time. So with that, I can pass it on to whoever else wanted to speak.
Thank you.
Either way, I would agree with that it is COVID related, whether it's kids in school or not in school. And if they've chosen to go remote, they're having issues with broadband. So that becomes COVID related. We all still continue to get calls with unemployment. It's shocking to know that you've got some families that have just been eating into savings since last March. And every month we get a couple that are saying, we have nothing left. We're going to lose our house. And of course, we were wishing they reached out sooner. We've continued to send additional money for additional staff and additional training for unemployment. It is still one of the biggest stressors is you cannot get those cases turned around quick enough to take care of people when they're in crisis. Sports. I don't know about you guys, but sports was a huge deal for me in high school. If I had to say the one thing, my most favorite part of high school was sports. If I'd had to give up my entire junior year and my senior year of sports, it would have been unbelievably impactful in my life from everything I learned and how hard you push yourself to become part of a team and all of that. So that's part of COVID related. And then of course, our businesses, there's been a number of packages. Kevin Daley mentioned a few where we're talking about trying to at least waive licenses. If you have whatever it is, medical or liquor license or I can't even tell you how many licenses there are out there. I sat on licensing and regulatory affairs. I asked them to send me a list one time, and they said, we don't even have a list in one place. That'll take us 3 or 4 weeks just to get you a list of everything we regulate and license, which is pretty depressing, honestly. So a lot of people are still continuing to pay that on top of their property taxes. So that becomes COVID related. So almost everything that touches us in any way right now, food supply chain, is COVID related. So I'm going to say COVID related. And then number 2 in my district is going to be tied into the dams.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for this question. Thanks, Herb. Of course, the COVID right now is the main thing, whether it's our testing our youth. We get about 30% about testing our youth. And if Bay County, because our aging population, the Secretary of State, I get a lot of calls because people just want to go in and buy their license, buy their tabs. And it is ridiculous about how hard it is to try to get an appointment. And then the people are late, and then they have to get charged a late fee. Like I've heard that numerous times out of different people, because I take a lot of my phone calls because I want to know what's going on. And the last is just these kids. What are we really doing for our seniors this year? Please don't make them, and this is what I'm hearing, and my kids are not seniors, they're only freshmen and sophomore, that we're talking about, please let them have a graduation and a prom. That's crucial. And people need to have that, like Annette says. It is really crucial that we get some of this stuff. The businesses are already trying to do what they can just to staff with the people that they can get to work for them. And that's why there's limited hours. So we're going to have to be really patient this year and of essential workers, because that's the situation we're in right now.
I'm going to pop back in here for just a second and tell you something else we hear quite a bit. Given all the stimulus money that's coming into individuals, we're hearing from businesses that they can't get staff back to work. So they can't get their restaurant beyond 50% because people are being paid more money to stay home instead of at work. And then the whole mental health is tied into all of those things we talked about, whether it's your business or your kids in school or out of school or broadband. So a couple more things.
Certainly not surprised that the COVID-related concerns are certainly prevalent, and just it's amazing how, and you brought up so many different examples that affect every family and every business a little bit differently, and but it certainly is top of mind for all of us. And along those lines, we have a couple of follow-ups on COVID-related. One, what is your message to residents in your districts regarding following mask mandates, social distancing, and getting vaccinated? So these businesses have the chance of getting back to business, and our families have the best chance of getting back to normality. And then there's a kind of a semi-related question about vaccinations, where they're indicating that apparently 78% of the vaccines that the state has received have been distributed at this point. There a way to increase that? Basically, is there ways that the state can help either incentivize or get people vaccinated? Some comment on that.
Annette, do you want to go first this time? I don't want to be the one that has to go first and answer.
I don't care.
We can
If we all
rotate.
work well together, I don't know that it matters who goes in which order, but
Okay.
I'm happy to go first. So you may or may not know that I am married to probably somebody in about as high a risk category as you can possibly get. So I'm a big proponent of making good choices for yourself. So I sit in the gallery. I don't sit down on the floor with the other members. I wear a mask when I'm out in public. We've transitioned to, I order groceries online and I pick them up. Other than my husband going to medical appointments, that's about all he's been out for over a year. As we've continued to get good and better information, we've got a bunch of grandkids. One of them happens to live with us, so we do get to see one and their parents. They're off for a couple years from military, going to school, and then are going to go back in. But we've got another one down in Ann Arbor that I think we've seen twice in a year. And usually after they are very careful for a couple of weeks before coming up here. But that's my scenario. That is my scenario. I think if I was in a different situation, that I might be less concerned about seeing friends and family because nobody would be at risk. So I'm a big believer in be educated. I definitely did doors this summer. I knew I could knock on doors and I could stand back far enough to listen to people and not put either of us at risk, and to keep my mask on when I was doing doors. And I can tell you that in some cases, I was on those doors a very, very long time because I was the first live person that anybody had talked to in 6 months, which kind of breaks your heart. We are social creatures. And even if we're introverts, we need some interaction. And there are ways that we can do things very carefully and very safely. So I'm a big proponent of make good choices, be safe. My mom was a nurse. I was brought up like wash your hands like crazy. I've talked to a ton of doctors who have talked about when they served in Africa or on trips with large outbreaks of things, of how much, if they just had easy access to water, how much just washing your hands would completely cut down the spread. So Midland got hit really, really hard. We had a lot of people who I'm assuming left for spring break, came back, everybody went back to work. But I know if it was me and I had gone on spring break, that I would not have been as vigilant about washing my hands everywhere I'd gone, because it would be doing something different all the time. I wouldn't just be going through my house every time I come someplace washing hands all the time. But those numbers look like they're stabilizing and coming down as people are returning to normal behavior patterns for Midland County. Bay, I represent the rural part, which has not been hit as hard as the city. And I see people that they're making good choices. This awards banquet that I was at last night, everything was very distanced. Everybody had masks on. And as I was talking to everybody, it was an older than average audience. I think I'd say 90% of everybody in that room had already received both vaccines.
Kevin, can I go next?
Feel free. Yes.
Okay, so I've been running my business this entire time through this, and that is mandated at my store to all my employees. And we do with the my OSHA, we have to sign in the morning. And if you go into, and most of my staff that are over 18 have been vaccinated, but they are great about using the mask, and the rest of them have already had COVID-19 and they still wear the mask. And going forward, we just want to be safe. And we do a lot of washing of hands when you own a meat market and you go for in between, you have to spend a lot of time. And it's actually basically food law. Would be nice if it was taught maybe to a lot of people, maybe in school, because it's a common sense, common with the food safety, which a lot of my staff already have. So that works out really nice for us. And going forward, we just want to get everything, everybody to be safe and get businesses back open.
Well, thank you. And just to clarify, when I was a state representative, it seemed like whenever I was on a function, the senator got to speak first, and then I never got to say anything. So I'm acknowledging that, and like to give everybody a rotation to get a chance to go first, because you don't. A lot of times these questions are answered by the first person and the same answer over and over again. So. But, I think there's a lot of personal choice involved here. And I think I encourage people to do what they believe is right for them, but to be safe and be solid. I can tell you back early on in this, in the pandemic last year, it would have been in around May time. It was a Saturday because I was out planting corn, and a good friend of mine came driving back there, and he was obviously very upset and got out of his car and said, I can't go into this business because they want me to wear a mask. They've got a sign out in front that says wear a mask. And I said, isn't that a private business? And he said, yes. I said, don't they have a right to protect their employees and their people that are coming into their business? And he said, well, sure they do. And I've got a right to shop somewhere else. And I said, there's your answer. Do what's best for the community. I have no problem with a business asking me to wear a mask. I wear a mask every time I go into a business out of respect to others. And I think we should be wearing the mask. We wear masks on the Senate floor. all the time that we are closer than 6 or 8 feet from each other. Their masks are on. Once you get to your seat where you're separated and you're not moving around, they can come off, because it does get, I feel sorry for the people that are on the front lines that have to wear those masks for a long period of time, because they get very irritating to some people. And I know there are some people that can't wear masks. So we've got to be really careful that those people that literally can't physically, because of health reasons, wear masks, that they're not put in a bad position as well. So I just think everybody, as Representative Glenn mentioned, she's got a husband at home that's compromised, and she has to be extra careful. I did learn one thing, and that is I'm 63 years old, and I'll tell you what, nobody will ever keep me away from my grandchildren again. I don't care what it takes. I was away from them for several months, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that again. I will be with them, and we'll stay together as a family, and we'll take it as we go.
Thank you all for your comments on that. It certainly is important. Do any of you have any thoughts on incentivizing vaccines or trying to increase that distribution pace as they're coming into the state?
There was an early joke that we should get Chick-fil-A to be in charge, because if you've ever been to a Chick-fil-A, they get you in and out of there so quick. I do know that at one point, I think this is that the governor has reached out to some businesses that specialize in logistics and brought them on. And at that point in time, things seem to move a little bit better. The government is not known. It's fact. They're not known at being super efficient. And so they did reach out to the private sector for some help in streamlining that. And shortly thereafter, you saw the numbers improve. Like everything else we've talked about, you really have to know your area. I think down in Detroit, the best way they're going to have to do it is they're just going to have to go door to door, because that is what the best approach is for that. And whether that literally means door to door, or whether that means you bring in not an ambulance, but a medical truck that has got the supplies needed, and you knock on doors and the entire street can come in waves, and then you move over to the next one, or whether they literally go door to door. But I'm hearing they're starting that recently, and I do, because Midland is so different than Detroit, I do check in with the state reps down there to say what's going on down there that I'm not hearing in the news, what's going well, anything I can help with, so that we take care, because that tends to be the highest numbers all the time. And part of it is the difference between, we're more rural. Even in our towns, our homes are further apart than in Detroit.
And I can tell you from my standpoint, I think you're going to see an improvement each day as we go by. I know that we do have one scheduled at Lansing. I think it's early next month that people can register for now. So I think it's getting out there better and better. And Representative Glenn makes a very good point. Every community is different, and it needs to be managed on a community by community basis. And I think you're going to see a big improvement as we move along.
Yeah, and even at my business, I have young people, and they've already been vaccinated, and they're only 18 and 22 and 19. So, and then we also had one that offered our whole house down in Lansing, like our staff, if they wanted to get it. And it kind of appears to us, do you know anybody? Like, people reach out to us all the time. So it's kind of SVSU just had one. Delta College, I think, is going to have one. There's getting to be a lot more out there. So they're kind of like overlapping and coming at different areas. I think that's excellent.
Thank you all. Since Senator Daley has kindly offered not to go first on every question, we will, just to give you a warning, Representative Beson will have you go first on this one, which is a little more politically charged. So probably a wise move on the senator's part. But I think that there has been a lot of talk around the country, and certainly in Michigan as well, about voting integrity and balanced with ease of ability for people to vote. And wondering what or people wondering what is happening in Lansing to make sure we both have ease of access of voting, but also maintain the integrity of our voting system. So,
Okay, so Herb, as I'm new at being a legislator, I'm not new in my beliefs of hard work and the way this should go down. I had a great talk with one of our local clerks, and she was very frustrated with the way that elections went down because we don't need 3 or 4 different people sending out absentee ballots. We need one spot. And my in-laws, which are the great teachers of Bangor Township, they've been voting absentee for 15 years, and they have a permanent address, right? With and they don't have to give their ID. I'm not really sure how that Senate bill is going down. That Kevin, he'll talk about it. But in the House, I do believe that you should be able to request an absentee ballot and from your home house, and it should come to there. That's I do agree with, and they voted like that for 15 years, and that's something that I agree with. And if you go in person, I do believe that you should have to have an ID because you have to have an ID to buy beer and wine in my store. I can't sell to you if you don't have it, but and you have to have an ID to get a car. You can't even rent a car unless you have an ID and over 25. So these are some things like we are very used to. I mean, even going into some areas, you have to show us a ID to walk into a public place. Now, I really am, and that's what happened this last year is the confusion came out when 2 or 3 ballots would show up to people's houses and they don't know how they got there and I think that was a confusion with my in-laws is why did we get 3? We only requested 1. Are they not counting it? So we need one spot. I don't care where it is. We need one spot that sends out the absentee ballots. So that way that we can keep track of them. Okay. So if that's my belief across the board, and our local clerks are doing amazing because I've got a chance to talk to 3 or 4 of them, and I can walk in as my state rep and ask to say, did we do it right? How do you feel? And yes, they're on top of it. So in our area, this might not be as main concern as some other areas that are not as well trained.
And I guess if we're going to go in order, I can go this time. And I thank Timmy for that information. But, you know, there were 39 bills introduced in the Senate just 2 weeks ago. They're going to be going to committees. And a lot of people don't realize what's going on in the Senate. And you know, we do have the former Secretary of State, Ruth Johnson, as a sitting senator in the Senate. She does chair the Elections Committee. She was also on the Oversight Committee, which we have been having hearings, and I don't have the hours, but Senator Ed McBroom from the UP is the chair of that committee, and he has been reviewing since right after the election, everything that happened. He has debunked a lot of the stories that were out there that the election was stolen, does not believe it was stolen, but they were the ones that drafted these 39 bills, put these bills together that are important bills. Unfortunately, we were blasted by a lot of people right after these bills were introduced. With actually, they were blasting when they were introduced, and they hadn't even had a chance to read them yet. So that's the sad part, because these bills, you know, I've been involved with elections for a long time as a township treasurer and a supervisor for a total of 20 years. I was on the election commission at the local level, where we reviewed, this was in our community, we used to vote with the old punch cards. If you remember back in the Bush and Gore debate with the hanging chads, and Florida had such a hard time. I was so disappointed in that because I had punched through every machine that we had before we used that machine to make sure there was no hanging chads. That's what we did with those machines. Then when we went to the electronic machines, I love those machines. I think those machines tally the votes now. Is there some questions now? Yeah. Do they need to be investigated? Absolutely. And they are. But the bills that have been introduced, you know, the requirement to show an ID to vote, you know, there is like 25 to 30 different things. And we keep adding to the list of things you have to show your ID to do. You have to show your ID to get a fishing license, but you shouldn't have to show your ID to vote. I mean, you need to prove who you are. The biggest problem we had, and the people voted for it, and I have no problem with the no reason absentee ballot. I think that people should be able to vote absentee for any reason at all. I think that's a great thing, and the people voted for it, and that's what we did. But the people did not vote to send out applications to everybody and their brother in advance of the election. That's just causing for trouble. I introduced a bill after that happened to create it. It would become a felony if you falsely filled out an absentee ballot application. We passed it out of the House and out of the Senate, sent it to the governor's desk, and it was vetoed. So, which I don't understand, because that would just make sense. But we do need to control those ballots. I personally think you need to show an I mean, the bills that we have would request you to mail in some proof of your residency with your ballot application. That even if that was a tax bill, it's my understanding, a tax bill, a electrical bill, a gas bill, or your driver's license, but a copy of that would go in with your application to prove that you are that individual, and then that ballot will be sent back. This has to be controlled. We have got so many township officials across this state that do a phenomenal job. The clerks, the majority by far of our clerks have so much integrity. I can tell you of 3 different townships across this district that I know personally where the clerks took their ballots in because they were off by 2 or 3 ballots and ran them through the machines again in front of the board to verify that they were correct and get that last ballot. That's how important it is for them to balance and for the integrity of the election. So we need to go through the process with these bills. We need to see what's in them, let the people see what's in them through the committee process, have that argument, and come up with some ideas to make sure that, I mean, it makes no difference if you're Republican, Democrat, independent, or whatever. If our elections are not secure and are not trusted, and we've lost our country, in my mind. And so I think these bills are very important, and I think we need to go through the process and keep an open mind going into them.
We in the House are also blessed to have a clerk, that somebody who actually ran the elections, and she tends to be our go-to person on all things election-wise. There was one bill that came up in the House that I thought was going to get near unanimous support. And what it was to extend the length of time before renewing your driver's license. And I don't know about you, we've all talked about going to the Secretary of State's office, how long you wait. You can't get an appointment. So initially, I think the majority of us thought this was a great idea. And our clerk pointed out that we use the driver's license when absentee ballots are requested and when people go vote to match the name in the picture. And she said, the longer you go between those 2 things, the less accurate and easy it is to match. And that's true. I pretty much don't look like my driver's license picture anymore. It's probably time I go in and look like my picture again, although I probably like the younger picture better. So I think there's going to be a lot of continued conversation. What they've got going on in the Senate, I don't get too invested in, because by the time it comes to the House, it's going to have some changes. That's rare that a bill doesn't get changed some. So I'm expecting there to be some changes in the Senate bills before they come to the House. Polling data shows nationwide that both Republicans and Democrats have concerns about election integrity. And this is a sacred privilege that we have. We have the country that has the longest standing constitution in the world. And part of that is because we have free and fair elections, and it's absolutely critical that we do what it takes to make sure that happens. We do have Proposal 3, which makes no reason absentee voting. That makes it pretty easy to vote. I don't know what else would make it easier to vote between sending a letter and just having the ballot come to you and being able to fill it out. But being able to do that is pretty easy. So I would say it's already very easy to go vote. If you've got suggestions on things that we could do to make it easier, happy to discuss those, just like with the driver's license bill. There's a ton I still don't know. So there's always something that you guys can teach us. So feel free to reach out with ideas and suggestions. I know all 3 of us are very willing to listen and to learn from all of you.
Thank you very much, all of you, for those comments on obviously extremely important and much cared about topic. So one final question, or I guess it's a couple of questions in one. One's more specific that is kind of directed, I think, mainly at you, Representative Glenn. So I'll have you start because it has to do with your district a little bit more. And that is funding, if there is any more available is there any activity going after more funding from the state or federal government for Midland and Gladwin counties, for those who were affected by the floods and the repair of dams? And on a related general note to all of you, there's a lot of funds coming in that are available, obviously, from the federal government right now. What's your comments on how we can get that funding to the people who need it, people and businesses that need it the most right now?
So there is a lot of money coming from the federal government, and there's a lot of money floating around at the federal government at this point in time. I think the last number I looked at what the federal government has sent the state of Michigan so far is around $15 billion. Now there's strings tied to some of that. We can't just use it wherever we want. We can't use it to cut taxes. We can't use it to fund pensions. We can't use it there. Anyway, there's a list, but infrastructure is one of those things that it can be used for. One of the complicated things with the dam is it is expensive to rebuild. If we don't rebuild, it's expensive to completely remove the dams. So there's a cost to the people that live around those dams that they're going to end up bearing one way or the other. So I know Congressman Molinar is continuing to work for federal funding to come in, and I know there are some very invested individuals that are working full-time in DC to continue to find funds that will pull down that way. And then we're blessed that it's never a blessing to have the dams fall out that way, but the state senator who chairs the Appropriations Committee happens to have every one of those counties in his district. And so as we're looking at infrastructure, I know that's going to be top of his mind, along with any number of other things. The governor is more invested in funding these areas as well. And so as we continue to look through the supplementals, through the federal funding and through state funding, I think that's going to be a priority for the next 4 to 5 years. It's a very difficult situation to have a home that you've maybe owned for 40 years and now be told that you're going to have to pay hundreds of dollars a month in additional property taxes that you may not be able to afford. It is an unbelievably sad situation. There's also a bunch of lawsuits going on, and I don't know how those are going to fall out and infect the area as well. There's lawsuits against the state, and how that would play out, that's all still, so a lot of moving parts, but definitely a lot of priority and a lot of time and effort going into making sure we can do something to lift that burden. Not their fault the dams failed. They didn't make bad decisions. They lived there, they paid their property taxes, they took care of their property, and this happened.
Thank you for that. Any comments on the general flow of funds from any of you regarding money coming from the federal government and getting it to those that need it as soon as possible?
Kevin, I'm going to go first because my batteries are getting low. And I did do some ask for the Bay County, and it is through Kildee and Bennett as my ask, and I did give some letters of recommendation of the stuff. We haven't got it in the House yet. We haven't seen what we're going to be. The only thing that I have actually got to see is on the school board is the ESSER, which is the Elementary School or Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. And if you guys want to look at our website, we'll have that out there. There's a lot of money coming into our schools, and we are hoping they use it wisely for like and maybe save some, because we're not really sure when the next time we're going to get this kind of funding for the amount that's coming in. So and as we go from there, I will give more updates on our next town hall with the chamber when we will know more about what the state house will have to appropriate between Annette, Glenn, and I and Kevin.
Yeah, and I guess I just would add to both of them and what Matt, excuse me, Annette mentioned is the strings that are attached to a lot of these dollars makes it difficult to just do it. Now, the other concern I have is that, we're receiving, we're talking probably 10 or 12 billion dollars that have come into our state because of COVID. That's a concern to me because we're artificially holding up an economy. And we are, the businesses that have not been working in this state, the revenue has not been coming into the state we've got a ghost town in Lansing right now. That's a concern to me that when the departments are allowed to come back to their offices and go to work, I'm not sure how much of the town's going to be left there, because it's hard to catch a restaurant open. The only time there's people there is Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays when the legislature's in office. And that's a small number of people compared to what would normally the thousands that would be working there. So we've got our work to do to distribute money, but I think we need to be really careful on how we distribute that money, and keep in mind that this is going to be a serious problem down the road.
Okay, I think we are reaching the end of our time. I just want to thank all three of you again for being with us today and your comments, and also for your dedicated work for us in Lansing and on our behalf. And now I would like to welcome back Ryan Tarrant, your President CEO of the Bay Area Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Herb. Appreciate you moderating today's event. And thank you to Senator Daley and Representatives Beson and Glenn for taking the time to share an update on what's happening in Lansing, as well as their priorities. I'm coming today actually live from Tavern 101. It's the Chamber team's lunch location today as part of our 2 weeks of eating out, supporting member restaurants and reminding people that our member restaurants are open at 50% capacity. Still have my mask here, but following all the rules. Before we jump off today's call, though, I do want to share a few highlights of some of the advocacy being done on your behalf by your Chamber of Commerce. We have recently updated our policy positions. Those are available on our website, and we usually use those for the next 2 years. So for this 2-year legislative session, those will kind of be the guardrails that keep me out of trouble as we're going through some of those items that come up. You can find them on our website. Again, they should pop up in your chat box momentarily if you'd like the link. A couple of the highlights of things we've done. We did work closely with the City of Bay City and Bay City Bridge Partners to help pass a 4-bill legislative package in Lansing that was signed by the governor. That paves the way for the Bay City Bridge Partners to move forward on the $100 million+ project, which will create 300 jobs in our community. Collaborated with the Bay County Health Department and Bay County, Bay Future, and others to create a Reopen Bay County website that sort of help businesses navigate the safe reopening during COVID. Joined with other regional chambers of commerce throughout the region and state to work on social district and liquor to go legislation. That helped those industries, the bar and restaurant industries, as they faced some significant challenges over the past year. I know it was mentioned kind of at the tail end of our presentations today, but with the return of congressional earmarks, which we just found out about a month ago, they're now known as community projects. We've actually supported no less than 6 community projects in our area, wide variety of nonprofits, municipalities, and have been working with our legislators on those. And also with our counties, our municipalities here in Bay County, expected to receive roughly $55 million in funding from the American Rescue Plan for COVID relief. We're working in a collaborative manner and leading on an effort to present to our local leaders how those funds should be spent in the business community, internet access, grants, talent attraction, retention, and other items. So, we're going to continue to be a voice for our members at the local, state, national levels, on regulatory and policy issues that affect your businesses. But we don't ever do that alone. A lot of that comes from you. A lot of it comes from working with other organizations. I think my tombstone's probably going to say played well with others because we do an awful lot of that. But we will continue to have a strong voice supporting our members. So we appreciate your support. Thank you for joining us today. And everyone have a great weekend.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Herb.
Thank you.